In this episode, you are going to learn the names and the capitals of the 50 United States of America. So in this episode, I'm going to be teaching you the pronunciation of the name of each state, the capital of each state, and also the state nickname. And just in case you don't know, a nickname is basically like sometimes it's a funny name, sometimes it's a term of endearment, some type of alternative name that you give to someone or something based on a joke or an experience or a story or a personality trait or something like that. So for example, let's imagine that your head is shaped like a peanut. I know it sounds funny, but imagine your head is shaped or looks like a peanut, and I start calling you Peanut because your head looks like a peanut. Instead of calling you your name, I don't know, Fernanda, I start calling you Peanut because one day I notice your head looks like a peanut. I'm like, hey, what's up, Peanut? So now your nickname is Peanut. Maybe you don't necessarily like it, but that's the name I call you now based on the fact that I think your head looks like a peanut. Hopefully you get the idea. All right, so each state has a name, a capital, and a nickname, and that's what I'm going to be teaching you in this episode. Now, if you would like more information about each of these states, for example, where these states get their names from, what these states are known for, and what you can find in each one of these states, then you can find that in the bonus materials for this episode at lifeinenglish.net. All right, but let's not waste any more time. Let's get right into the episode. All right, now I'm going to go through these states in alphabetical order, which, just in case you don't know, means we're going to start with the letter A and go in order all the way to the letter Z. Unfortunately, there are no states that start with the letter Z. That'd be kind of cool, right? I think so. But anyway, let's get started. All right, the first state out of 50 on the list, Alabama. 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 And Alabama is known as the Yellowhammer State. That's its nickname, the Yellowhammer State. Alabama, the Yellowhammer State. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see in the image, the yellowhammer is actually a bird. It's the state bird of Alabama. All right. Now, the capital of Alabama is Montgomery. Montgomery. Montgomery, Alabama. And again, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see in the top right corner of your screen, that is the shape of the state of Alabama. And on top of that is the flag, because each state has its own name, capital, nickname, and flag, amongst some other things. But you can see here this white flag with the red X on it. That is the state flag of Alabama. All right, cool. Let's move on to number 2. Next state on the list is Alaska. Alaska. And Alaska is known as the last frontier. The last frontier is Alaska. And the capital of this state is Juneau. Juneau, Alaska. All right, the next state on the list is Arizona. Arizona, the Grand Canyon State. The Grand Canyon State. And this one is easy to explain. The Grand Canyon, it's called the Grand Canyon State because the Grand Canyon is located in Arizona. So it's known as the Grand Canyon State. Now, the capital of Arizona is Phoenix. Phoenix. I know if you're reading it, it looks like Phoenix. I don't know where the origin of that word, I don't know where that word originates. I don't know where it comes from, but we pronounce it Phoenix. Phoenix, Arizona. The next state on the list is Arkansas. Arkansas. Arkansas is known as the natural state. And the capital of Arkansas is Little Rock. Little Rock. You can say Little Rock, but I think many Americans will pronounce this as little, almost as if the two T's were two D's. Little Rock. Little Rock, Arkansas. Now, the next state on the list, one of my personal favorites, is California. California, the Golden State. And you might recognize that nickname, the Golden State, like the Golden State Warriors. That's why they have that name, because California is known as the Golden State. And the capital of California is Sacramento. Sacramento. Sacramento, California. All right, next state on the list is Colorado. Colorado. Now, some people, especially people from the state, I hear them pronounce this as Colorado. I say Colorado. Other people say Colorado. There's no incorrect or correct way. You can pronounce it either way, and it's totally fine. Now, Colorado is known as the Centennial State. The Centennial State. And the capital of this state is Denver. Denver, Colorado. The next state on the list is Connecticut. Connecticut, also known as the Constitution State. And the capital of this state is Hartford. Hartford, Connecticut. The next state is Delaware. And Delaware is also known as the first state. According to the history, it was the first state of the first original 13 states of the United States of America. Wish I had $1 for every time I said state in this episode. Anyway, the capital of Delaware is Dover. Dover, Delaware. All right, moving on to the next state is Florida. Florida. And Florida is known as the Sunshine State. You know, the weather is almost always perfect, especially in South Florida or Southern Florida, excuse me. And the capital of Florida is Tallahassee. Tallahassee, Florida. All right, next on the list is Georgia. Next on the list is Georgia. That's, I guess, the standard way of saying it. I don't know how else to say that, but we say Georgia. Georgia, like the name George, and Georgia, you know. And Georgia is known as the Peach State, like the fruit, the Peach State. And the capital of Georgia is Atlanta. Now, I know this word for a lot of people is kind of funny or confusing because there are 2 T's in this word, Atlanta. We don't pronounce either one of them. Say Atlanta, Georgia. Now, you can say Atlanta. Totally fine, like pronounce it however you want. I'm just saying, most of us, I live in Georgia right now, very close to Atlanta, and we all say Atlanta. All right, Atlanta, Georgia. All right, next on the list is Hawaii. Hawaii. Now, I've heard many people from the islands of Hawaii, they pronounce it Hawaii. Like there's emphasis on that last I, Hawaii. But again, most of us just say Hawaii. And Hawaii is known as the Aloha State. And the capital of this state is Honolulu. Honolulu, Hawaii. Honolulu, Hawaii. Next on the list is Idaho. Idaho. And Idaho is also known as the Gem State. Not gem like G-Y-M, like we're going to the gym, but G-E-M, like precious stones and things like that, diamonds and gold and I don't know. Think of some names of some other gems. I don't know. And the capital of Idaho is Boise, B-O-I-S-E, Boise, Boise, Idaho. The next state on our list is Illinois. Illinois. Now, if you're reading this, or if you've ever read the word, you'll see that the word ends with an S, but we do not pronounce that S. It is silent. Say Illinois. And Illinois is also known as the Prairie State. And just in case you don't know, and in case you're not watching this, a prairie is a very, very big, flat grassland. You don't see many trees. There's moderate rainfall during the year, but it's just a long, wide, flat land with lots of grass. That's a prairie. All right. And the capital of Illinois is Springfield. Springfield, Illinois. All right. Next state, Indiana. Indiana. Indiana is also known as the Hoosier State. Now, there's an interesting story about the word Hoosier, what it means and where it comes from. So, again, if you want to know more about that, you can check out those bonus materials at lifeinenglish.net. And or you could, maybe do your own Google search and see what you find. But it's pretty interesting. Now, the capital of Indiana is Indianapolis. Kind of funny. Indianapolis, Indiana. Say that 3 times fast. Indianapolis, Indiana. All right. Next state. The next one on the list is Iowa. Iowa, also known as the Hawkeye State. Another state with a nickname that is rooted in some type of history that's pretty interesting, And the capital of this state is Des Moines. Now, I could be pronouncing that incorrectly. I've never met someone from Iowa or from this city, but when I read it, naturally, I would say Des Moines. That's what most of us say. And it's spelled, just in case you're not watching, DES space MOINES, Des Moines. Des Moines, Iowa. Actually, I think the S is silent. Des Moines, Iowa. But I'm not 100% sure about that, actually. Des Moines or Des Moines. I'm sure the S is silent because I believe it comes from French. And most of the time, those S's at the end, they're silent. Anyway, moving on to the next state, which is Kansas. Kansas. Like in the Wizard of Oz, you're not in Kansas anymore, right? Kansas is known as the Sunflower State. The beautiful sunflower state of Kansas. And the capital of this state is Topeka. Topeka. Now, maybe some people say Topeka. I've never heard it pronounced that way. But anyway, just know that I would say Topeka, Kansas. All right, next state on the list, Kentucky. Kentucky is known as the Bluegrass State. Now, I know it might be kind of funny to imagine bluegrass, but there's a story behind that and a reason that we call it bluegrass. If you ever come to the United States or just search bluegrass on Google, you'll probably understand why Kentucky is called, or you'll understand what bluegrass is. And then with more research or checking out the bonus materials, you'll see why it's called the Bluegrass State. Now, the capital of Kentucky, the Bluegrass State, is Frankfort. Frankfort, Kentucky. Frankfort, Kentucky. All right, next on the list is Louisiana. Louisiana. I know that one might be a little difficult. Louisiana, which is known as the Pelican State. And the pelican is a bird. If you're just listening, you can't see. Here on the screen, that bird that you see is a pelican. It's not only the name, the state nickname, but you can see also in the top right corner, it's on the state flag. So the pelican, for some reason, is very important to the state of Louisiana. Now, the capital of this state is Baton Rouge. Now, I know it looks like Baton Rouge, and I guess you could say it that way, but most of us don't really pronounce the T in Baton, so we say Baton. Baton Rouge, Louisiana. All right. Cool. The next state on the list is Maine. Maine, M-A-I-N-E, Maine. Maine is known as the pine tree state. The pine tree is a type of tree that you find a lot in Maine, and the capital of this state is Augusta. I know it looks like Augusta or Augusta, but we say Augusta. Augusta, Maine. The next state on the list is Maryland. I know it looks like Maryland, but we just pronounce it Maryland. Maryland. And Maryland is known as the Old Line State. Now, there's some controversy, I think, about where this name comes from or who gave this state its name. But anyway, check out those bonus materials. You'll learn more about that. Now, the capital of Maryland is Annapolis. Annapolis, Maryland. You know what? Actually, I should take this time to also say I did not include Washington, D.C. in the 50 states because technically it's not a state. You know what I mean? It's a district that is kind of not attached to any other state. Technically, you could say it's in Maryland, but it's not part of Maryland. Okay, so Washington, D.C. is the capital of the 50 United States, and we'll just leave it at that. But just in case you were wondering at some point, or maybe at the end when you saw I didn't include that in the 50, that's the reason why, because technically it's not one of the 50 United States. All right, so let's continue. Next state on the list, Massachusetts. Massachusetts. This was everyone's favorite to pronounce. Massachusetts. Massachusetts. Say that 3 times fast. Massachusetts is known as the Bay State. The Bay State. And the capital of Massachusetts is Boston. Boston, Massachusetts. All right. Next state on the list is Michigan. Michigan. And Michigan is known as the Great Lakes State because it's surrounded by the Great Lakes. Now, the capital of Michigan is Lansing. So that S kind of makes a Z sound. Lansing. Lansing, Michigan. All right, the next state on the list is Minnesota. Minnesota. Minnesota, known as the North Star State. Minnesota, the North Star State. Now, the capital of Minnesota is St. Paul. St. Paul, Minnesota. All right, we are almost halfway there. The next state on the list is Mississippi. Another favorite. Mississippi. Mississippi. Also known as the Magnolia State. And if you can't see this right now, you'll see, well, for those of you that can see, on the screen is a magnolia, which is a type of flower. It's not only the name, the state nickname, but you can also see it's on the flag for that state. All right. Now, the capital of Mississippi is Jackson. Jackson, Mississippi. Next state on the list is Missouri. Missouri. So I know if you're reading this, you see the 2 S's and you might think it's Missouri, but we pronounce it Missouri with like a Z sound. Missouri. And Missouri is known as the Show Me State. Show me, like show me something. Okay? The Show Me State. And the capital of Missouri is Jefferson City. Jefferson City, Missouri. Now, next on the list is Montana. Montana, also known as the Treasure State. And the capital of the Treasure State, Montana, is Helena. Helena. Now, some people say Helena, others might say Helena. It's really, I guess, a question of preference. So you say what you want, but I would say Helena, Montana. All right, next on the list is Nebraska. Nebraska. And Nebraska is known as the Corn Husker State. Lots of corn in the state of Nebraska, which is basically the idea behind where they get their name from. All right. Now, the capital of Nebraska is Lincoln, like the president, Abraham Lincoln. All right. Lincoln, Nebraska. All right. Next state on the list is Nevada. Nevada. Some people say Nevada. Other people say Nevada. You say whichever one you want. All right. Now, Nevada is known as the Silver State. And the capital of this state is Carson City. Carson City, Nevada. All right. The next state on the list is New Hampshire. New Hampshire. Also known as the Granite State. And just in case you don't know, granite is like a type of rock. Okay. And the capital of this state is Concord. Concord, Connecticut. Not Connecticut. The fuck. Concord, New Hampshire. Concord, Connecticut sounds good though, right? Just Concord, Connecticut. It sounds like they should be together, but that's not the capital of Connecticut. That's the capital of New Hampshire. Concord, New Hampshire. All right. Moving on. The next state on the list is New Jersey. New Jersey, also known as the Garden State. And the capital of this state is Trenton. Some people would say Trenton. I would say Trenton. So that second T becomes silent, basically. Or like Trenton. Yeah, it becomes silent. We don't pronounce it like a normal T. So we would say Trenton, New Jersey. All right, the next state is New Mexico. New Mexico, also known as the Land of Enchantment, which is really interesting, by the way, because I've driven through the entire state of New Mexico more than one time, and I gotta be honest, man, I wasn't enchanted, you know? All I can remember is desert on both, just dirt on both sides of me as I'm driving down the freeway, you know? Maybe the enchanting parts are in other parts of the state where I didn't drive, but I don't remember it being very enchanting. All right. It's like 110 degrees and I was in the middle of the desert, Not very enchanting. But anyway, the capital of New Mexico is Santa Fe. Santa Fe, New Mexico. All right, the next state on the list is New York. New York. I'm sure everybody knows about this one. And New York is also known as the Empire State. So now you might have an idea of why it's called the Empire State Building, or like the song, The Empire State of Mine. It's a reference to the state New York. Now the capital of the New York. The capital of New York is not New York City, but it's Albany. Albany, New York. Now the next state on the list is North Carolina. North Carolina. This state is known as the Tar Heel State. Now, there's a lot of history behind that one that even if you do the research, can kind of be kind of hard to understand because it's kind of related to U.S. history and some wars and battles and things like that. And so unless you're interested in that type of stuff or you have some knowledge, even if you read the story about where this name comes from, it doesn't make much sense. But anyway, moving on. The capital of North Carolina, the Tar Heel State, is Raleigh. Raleigh. Now, some people might say Raleigh. I've never heard it pronounced that way. But me, naturally, I would say Raleigh. Raleigh. So don't let that spelling confuse you. We pronounce it Raleigh. Raleigh, North Carolina. All right, next on the list is North Dakota. North Dakota, also known as the Peace Garden State. The Peace Garden State, or the capital of the Peace Garden State, is Bismarck. Bismarck, North Dakota. All right, next on the list is Ohio. Ohio. And this state is also known as the Buckeye State. Now, the Buckeye is actually a type of tree, if I'm not mistaken, but the Buckeye is also the name or the mascot or the symbol of Ohio State University. So their football and basketball team, or anybody who went to that school or plays for their sports teams, they're known as the Buckeyes. All right, now the capital of the Buckeye State, Ohio, is Columbus. Columbus, Ohio. All right, next state on the list is Oklahoma. Oklahoma. And Oklahoma is known as the Sooner State. Also a very interesting story behind the name Sooner. Very, very interesting. So you should check that out. That one out of all of them, I think, is really interesting. Now, the capital of Oklahoma is Oklahoma City. Very creative, right? Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. All right, next state on the list is Oregon. Oregon, also known as the Beaver State. Now, if you can't see this, if you're not watching right now, the beaver is a type of animal. For those of you that are watching, you can see on the screen, and it's the state animal of Oregon. Now, the capital of this state is Salem. Salem, Oregon. All right, next on the list is Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is also known as the Keystone State. The capital of the Keystone State is Harrisburg. Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. All right, next on the list is Rhode Island. Rhode Island. The state nickname is the Ocean State. The Ocean State. Now, the capital of the Ocean State is Providence. Providence, Rhode Island. All right, we're almost done, folks. The next state on the list is South Carolina. So we already said North Carolina. Right under that is South Carolina, also known as the Palmetto State. Now, I could be pronouncing that wrong, but as an English speaker, when I read this word, that's how I would naturally try to say it. The Palmetto State. The palmetto is a tree, by the way. You can see it in this image in the bottom left corner and also on the state flag of South Carolina. Now, the capital of this state is Columbia. Columbia, South Carolina. All right, next state is South Dakota. South Dakota. So we've already had North Dakota. Right under that is South Dakota. And South Dakota is known as the Mount Rushmore state. Now, just in case you don't know and you're not watching this right now, Mount Rushmore is a very famous, I believe it's maybe 50 or 60 feet high sculpture of 4 extremely famous United States presidents. I believe it's George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Abraham Lincoln, and I can't remember the 4th one. Even though I'm looking at the sculpture right now, I don't know his name. But anyway, it's a giant sculpture of 4 U.S. presidents. I believe it took something like 14 years to complete. And it's a sculpture, not just any sculpture. It was carved into the side of an actual mountain. And like I said, it took like 14 years to finish. It's pretty amazing. I would love to go see it with my own eyes one day. But anyway, it's known as the Mount Rushmore state because the Mount Rushmore is in South Dakota. And the capital of this state is Pierre. Oh, Pierre, South Dakota. Right? Pierre, South Dakota. All right, moving on. Next state on the list is Tennessee. Tennessee. And Tennessee is known as the volunteer state. And the capital of this state is Nashville. Nashville, Tennessee. All right, next state on the list is Texas, one of the most famous, Texas. Texas is known as the Lone Star State. Now, just in case you don't understand Lone Star, it basically just means one star, one single star alone by itself, okay? And the capital of the Lone Star State, Texas, is Austin. Austin, Texas. All right, next state on the list is Utah. Utah. And Utah is also known as the Beehive State, which is very interesting. Another one of those states with an interesting background, interesting story on how it got its name and what it means to the people of Utah. Now, the capital of this state is Salt Lake City. Salt Lake City, Utah. All right, the next state on the list is Vermont. Vermont, also known as the Green Mountain State. And the capital of this state is Montpelier. Now, I believe that's the English-speaking pronunciation of the word, but this word looks French to me, so some people from Vermont might say Montpelier. I don't know. I just imagine, all right? So you can say Montpelier, Vermont, Montpelier, Vermont. I honestly don't know what the standard or correct pronunciation would be. I've never met anybody from there, so now you have the 2 options. You pick which one is best for you. I would naturally say Montpelier, Vermont, just so you know. All right, moving on. The next state on the list is Virginia. Virginia. This is actually the state I was born in. And Virginia is known as the Old Dominion State. And the capital of this state is Richmond. Richmond, Virginia. Okay, next state on the list is Washington. Washington, like George Washington or Washington, D.C. And the capital, before I get to the capital, the state nickname is the Evergreen State. And just in case you don't know, evergreens are the types of trees that are always green the entire year. They don't change colors in the fall. They don't lose their leaves or anything like that. From January to December, the leaves of these trees are green, evergreen. All right. Now, the capital of Washington is Olympia. Olympia, Washington. All right. State number 48 is West Virginia. So we have Virginia, right? Right next to that is West Virginia. And West Virginia is known as the Mountain State. The capital of the Mountain State is Charleston. Charleston, like the name Charles, and then add "ton" to the end. Charleston. Charleston, West Virginia. All right. The next state on the list is Wisconsin, or Wisconsin, as some people might say if they're actually from the state. Wisconsin, people from this state, or even that region, Wisconsin, Minnesota, they are known for having a very particular accent. And in a future episode, I'm going to be analyzing or exposing you to the many different accents you can find here in the United States, so be on the lookout for that. But back to this episode, Wisconsin is also known as the Badger State. Now, if you're watching this, you can see in the bottom left corner an image of the animal that we call a badger. If you're not watching this, just understand that badger is an animal, all right? Now, the capital of Wisconsin is Madison. Madison, Wisconsin. And the very last state, the last but not the least, is Wyoming. Wyoming. And Wyoming actually has 3 different nicknames with 3 different stories. All right. The first one is the Cowboy State. The Cowboy State. The second one is the Equality State. And the third one is Big Wyoming, just because it's big. All right. Now, the capital of Wyoming is Cheyenne. Cheyenne, Wyoming. And that's it, my friend. Now you know how to pronounce the name, the capital, and also the state nickname of each of the 50 United States of America. Now, like I said before in the episode, if you want to learn more about each state nickname, where the names come from, a little bit of history, also what each of these states is known for, you can check that out in the bonus materials for this episode at lifeinenglish.net. This is Life in English. I'm Tony Kaizen, and I'll talk to you later. Peace.